Hi folks, just another update for you on the coronavirus situation, the topic of the moment that everyone is talking about. There's just so much pure rubbish being speculated around this virus, and there's just so much pure rubbish being brought to us by the mainstream media. But fortunately, there's been a lot of good research that's been done in the background by the independent media, and the truth about what this coronavirus situation really is starting to come out to people. A lot of people are getting wind of what's really going on, folks. A lot of people are realizing that a lot of the stuff we're seeing from China, a lot of the videos that are being released, even some of the stuff that I brought you on some of the previous reports, when I said to you that it's hard to confirm where these videos come from, hard to confirm whether they're taken on the days we're told, even whether they're taken in China, whether it's Hong Kong in the protests or what's really going on in a lot of these videos. And I've received a lot of reports from people saying that's exactly what's happening. There's been all sorts of propaganda being released to make the situation seem like it's far worse. People are being treated very badly in China, but a lot of what we're seeing has been designed to push it and make it appear that it's a lot worse than what it is. And, you know, the spraying that they're doing everywhere, all this sort of stuff, it's a lot of it is very contrived, folks. If you look at the reports that are coming out, and, you know, they're talking about this being a pandemic, of course, and it's not a pandemic at all, folks. If you look at the reports that are coming out, you can go to this site, the Worldometer, and it's got statistics for the month on all sorts of stuff. If you look at this, coronavirus deaths this year, 2,773 deaths. Seasonal flu deaths this year, 76,512. So where's the pandemic here with the coronavirus, folks? But they're certainly pushing it. They're pushing it everywhere. As you can see here in Australia, coronavirus may already be a global pandemic. Here's what's about to change. Predictive programming, folks, they're preparing you for this. And if you scroll down and look through this website, it tells you about it, how it's growing in Iran, shows you the people in masks, shows you hospital beds in China down here. The Center for Disease Control, I would say it's really more like the Center for Disease Creation. From containment to mitigation, the P word alone won't help the public understand what's about to change. The end of most quarantines, travel restrictions, contact tracing, and other measures designed to keep them from infecting us, and the switch to measures like cancelling mass events designed to keep us from infecting each other. You can see where they're taking this, folks. They're about to restrict everything. Expect tent waiting rooms in hospital car parks. This is in Australia. They're saying they expect 1 million people to get it in Australia. Of course, it probably won't be until they turn on the 5G system, folks, but this is what to expect. Schools, workplaces may be closed, big events cancelled. Are you getting where they're going with this, folks? And it's already happening in other places around the world. Here you've got Italy on effective lockdown after virus clusters form. Virus clusters, folks. Sounds ominous, doesn't it? Words like virus clusters, all of this sort of stuff. The CDC has confirmed 35 cases of novel coronavirus in the United States. They're pushing it out to make everyone paranoid about this. The US military is prepping for coronavirus pandemic, executing plans to prepare for potential pandemic of the COVID-19 virus. All sorts of speculation about this name too. Oh, COVID. COVID means Kobe. It's Kobe Bryant, you know. COVID, you know, people make up conspiracy theories about everything, folks. COVID, coronavirus is COV, CO for corona, V for virus. ID is ID, the identification of when this particular strain was identified, which was 2019, which is why it's COVID ID'd in 2019. You'll find there's like COVID-15 and there's COVID other numbers as well, depending on the year they were identified as a particular strain. And they put this out there so that people who are saying, oh, there's patents of this and that can say, well, you don't know if it's the right patent, you know. But this is, of course, what you're going to see in this situation when they release these events and stage these events. You're always going to see people creating paper trails to say where it came from, this lab and this lab and this lab. As we've seen in the reports that I've even brought you, we've seen reports that it's been coming from a Canadian lab, we've seen reports that it's come from a American lab, and we've seen another report that it's come from a British lab. There was actually a report that I published the other day by a couple of guys called Mike and Doug. It was the Mike and Doug show. I don't agree with everything they said in the report, but the key thing about what they brought us in that report was they showed how this virus creation and the whole pharmaceutical industry, the vaccination industry, all of it goes way back to Dr. Livingstone. When Dr. Livingstone went to Africa and was doing all that stuff there, what they were actually doing was collecting poisons. They were collecting poisons and cures so they could basically create the pharmaceutical industry. They could introduce poisons into our environments and into our food supply, and then they could come along with the vaccinations against these poisons and create the sickness-dependent, vaccination-dependent, pharmaceutical-dependent society they've created now. This was done via the Pirbright Institute. An interesting connection they made in that discussion was that Pirbright was actually a man called de Worms. The first Baron Pirbright was a man called de Worms, who was a Rothschild, and it connected the whole thing together. It showed how the Boer War, during the Boer War, they were actually staging vaccination trials and disease trials. They were using African children and experimenting on them with vaccinations and all sorts of drugs and poisons they were pulling out of the jungle to find out what worked, what they could bring back to the West. That's what was going on. Very, very revealing discussion that Mike and Doug show. I highly recommend that you go and look at it. It talks about an organization called Kinetic as well, which is run in England and is under the protection of the royal family, basically. You can't investigate the Queen, so therefore you can't investigate Kinetic because she is a major shareholder. Kinetic is where all of the Five Eyes information goes. It's where all of the Serco information goes. It's all one big happy family. And the reason nobody's been able to really investigate this is because it lies under the protection of the monarchy. Very interesting, folks, especially when you consider that they all work together. All of these governments work together. So even saying that and tracing a lot of this stuff to Kinetic doesn't mean it's actually the Queen running it. It's just the monarchy that's being used to protect it because they all work together. You look at Rothschilds, look at the connection between the Jewish families and Rothschilds, where this is all going, folks. It's the same people running the whole thing. But that was a very interesting discussion. But you can see here, as I said, the US military is prepping for a pandemic, and they put all this out there, folks. Like I said, they'll put the stuff out there. You'll always have an expert come out and say, look, we know this is a bioweapon that was leaked from a lab. You don't know who this expert is. You don't know how he actually knows that, but there'll be someone out there that will put it out there because you've got all the independent media out there looking for alternative reasons and alternative things. They're not going to believe the mainstream, so you've got to give them information that they're going to follow. Oh, it's a secret bioweapon released from a secret lab. Well, what if it isn't? What if they actually made some sort of a bioweapon which was genetically specifically tailored to Chinese? So there was some sort of an outbreak in China so they can disrupt the Chinese economy and have China locked down the way they want to do. And then they just tell the rest of the world that it's a pandemic, but it's not. It's actually stuff that's being implemented and brought about through the electromagnetic system that they've got put in place. And there's a lot of information out there about this now, folks. The very first report that I did on this, I mentioned a report by the Fullerton Informer, Joe Imbriano, I think his name is. I think I got it right this time. Where he talked about magnetobiology and how the 60 gigahertz frequency can actually affect molecules. It can reverse the spin of the electrons that bond the oxygen molecule together, which prevents your hemoglobin from uptaking the oxygen into your blood, causes respiratory problems, all the stuff that we're seeing with these coronavirus type symptoms. This all appears to be related to electromagnetism, folks, as I brought you on the very first report that I put out about this. But as I said, you can see here they are preparing for a coronavirus pandemic in the United States. US and Navy Marines prepare to execute pandemic plans as questions resurface about coronavirus origin. See, again, they're saying we can trace it to a biolab in China, we can trace it to a biolab in Canada, we can trace it to a biolab in the United States, we can trace it to Kinetic, we can trace it to, if you look at the patent, Pirbright actually holds the patent for it. But is this what is infecting people? Because I don't think that there actually is any type of pandemic happening at all, folks. I think that there's very likely some sort of genetic specific virus that's been released in China, some sort of a pathogen that's been released in China to affect the Chinese people, and then all they need to bring it out to the rest of the world is propaganda. I really think that's what's going on, folks. And the steps they're taking in China are absolutely horrendous. They really are. There's a report put out, there was a video that was released by someone filming a woman in their taxi. I think it might have been even the taxi driver that was videoing this. But and it talks about people being removed from hospitals while they're still alive, wrapped up in body bags and taken off to the crematorium while they're still alive. So that would indicate that there may well be some sort of pathogen in China. But the disturbing part about it is that the driver was very upset about what was going on. The woman was upset about it as well, but she kind of accepted it and realized that this has to be done to protect us from this terrible virus. So this is the mentality that they're putting into people, folks. Have a quick look at this video.
那是我亲眼看的，我是18号，他是14的，等于呢，他是28号的早上去的，他下午是天津队来的，就跟他呢就只有去起码的经济，他跟我经历的是一样的个道理，我可能年轻一些，他70多岁，他就顶不住。早跟你讲了，得了这个病，顶住就顶住，顶不住的人都拷回。跟你讲了。
跟着他还死。
哎，这一口气还没灭，他手就他捆他的头的时候，
人还在动。
他是脚手还在动，然后脚手就一捆，捆了之后呢，就一个塑料的妈的个那个袋子，个盒袋子，就你妈一包，包了之后拉链一拉，然后又偷了一个你妈的又是一个那个塑料袋。好，那个塑料袋子去了之后，他又把一层那个鬼膜子，就是外头那个大虫子一个那个鬼东西，又把它一包。
A bit hard to breathe through 3 bags, folks. 4 layers of bags. Tied with
他
a
有没有
rope.
强调一下子？
我这么东西强调就是阳气。
那你们等于是活人直接。
他那这个东西强调的是他那个医院是个好院，他拿了去看了病院，就看那个山里个。
我们活人就能拿到去烧啊！
烧啊的，他走去烧蜡烛，跟你讲了。
我的妈！
我们看到结果，我隔壁房的也是这样，一个老头，他完全没有担心，就包了，开始包了，在打包了。
我的妈！几个人都是那样的，等于说是。
哎，我们都看着那个亲眼看着，我们都住院，我亲眼看了，真是想到害心呐！那真是我们死一个心的，我的要死啊！
我的妈，那个太惨了！关键是你是活人，你妈去救他。
我要救啊！他没事救的，要么的药，要么的我这个羊吃过了，没事救。
哦，对。
真是你们没看到外头人的身体是好看的，他真是一个手让你可以救，妈的个。
That's extremely disturbing information, folks, to know that that is what's happening in China. People who aren't even dead yet are being just tied up and locked in bags and taken to the crematorium. And the woman was saying, well, I was grief-stricken, I wanted to cry, but what can you do? There's nothing you can do. This is how much people believe in this so-called pandemic, folks. And why would they want to do this? Why would they want to push a pandemic? Why would they want to declare a pandemic? Well, it's not only just to lock us down. I mean, that's what's going to happen. They're going to be travel restrictions, food restrictions. They make it so that people can't even go to work. So therefore, you can't go to work and get paid. If you can't go to work and everything's digital, how do you get money out of the banks? How do you go shopping? How do you do any of this stuff if your life revolves around credit cards and cell phones? Can you see where they've been leading us, folks? Can you see what's happening here? And why would they want to do it? Another reason they would want to do it is, look at this, folks. They take bets on all of this stuff. The World Bank's pandemic bonds mature in July. Investors lose 500 million if a pandemic is declared. Do you think the World Bank would want the governments of the world to declare a pandemic? How many ex-investment bankers do you think we have working in politics at the moment, folks, who definitely are working for the banks and would like to see this happen? There's a lot of reasons why they want to do this, folks. And what I was talking about before, the fact that they may have created some sort of a genetic genetically tailored, some sort of a genetically specific virus, and released it in China in order to kickstart this. There's a very interesting report that came out by Bill Ryan about 10 years ago that a few people have shared with me. He didn't get everything in the report correct, but again, this is 10 years ago, so you've got to give him the benefit of the doubt in that. Also, it's called the Anglo-Saxon Mission. I would disagree with that title. I don't think this is an Anglo-Saxon mission at all. I think there are other men in small hats that would be more to blame about what's going on. But have a look at what he says here about the plan for China. Have a listen to this little bit here. It's very, very revealing. Just a minute or so of this.
And then the next thing that happens in this chess game that's being played is that biological weapons are released on China. He heard this being discussed in this meeting. They will release a flu-like virus that will be genetically targeted against the Chinese population. It's racially targeted against the Chinese people. It's designed to spread like wildfire and to knock out a large number of the Chinese people. And these people in this meeting were laughing about this. They said, China will catch a cold. Those were their words. China will catch a cold.
Isn't that interesting, folks? Isn't that interesting? That would have come out 10 years ago that it would be saying that. There's another report that was put out by a man called Jeff Jones or Jeff somebody. Jeff Jones. Jeff Jones? I think it's Jeff Jones. Jeff Brown. Jeff J. Brown. And it says here, why was the University of Rochester recruiting medical student subjects when the baseline requirement was they had to be 100% ethnic Chinese? Looks like DNA collection to me. This has been going on since 2003, folks. Are both sets of grandparents born in China? Are you over 18? Are you an experienced contact lens wearer with astigmatism? Are you willing to wear daily disposable contact lenses? Are you willing to come to 5 study visits over the course of 3 months? This is DNA collection that you would use if you wanted to tailor some type of genetically specific virus or biological agent to release in China, just to create some sort of a epidemic in China that then you can then use to simulate markers of the common cold. And then you can say, well, in the West, anybody who's got these markers of the common cold may have this terrible coronavirus. You know, and you get to a point where they can just give you a roadside checks where they can take your temperature, and if you're 1 degree over normal, then they can take you away. You know, there's reports coming out to say that anybody who has tested positive for this virus and then recovers may possibly be a carrier for the rest of their lives. So perhaps you shouldn't associate with these people. So it's a way of splitting everybody up and getting everybody paranoid about everybody else and needing the government to come in and protect you, folks. And it's one big scam. It really is. I don't think there is any coronavirus. I think there's some sort of pathogen that's been released in China, and I think the rest of it is just a scam. It's a propaganda exercise. The best report I think you could possibly see on coronavirus actually has been released by a woman from the United States called Dana Ashley. A lot of people have been sending me this as well. It's actually been favoured on my channel for the last few days, and I've been sending it to a lot of people as well. She breaks it all down brilliantly in this report, and I recommend that you share this one everywhere. You'll find a link below. She just nails it, breaks it all down, shows you what their plans are, shows you some of the meetings that they've gone to, some of the meetings that they're having, some of the discussions they have, shows you how 5G can affect the 60 gigahertz bandwidth, shows you how it affects the oxygen intake, how it affects your hemoglobin. You know, it shows how they can manufacture this whole thing. So the important thing through this, folks, is that you don't buy into the fear, don't buy into the scam the government is pushing. You know, I would recommend that you share that Dana Ashley video with everybody, download it and save it, because I'll probably delete it if too many people get to see it. But I don't think that there is any fear of this coronavirus that we need to have at all, folks. I think the only thing to be concerned about is the steps that the governments are going to implement under the pretext of protecting us from the so-called coronavirus. I don't think there is any coronavirus, folks, nothing that is lethal anyway. What I think they've done is they've managed to turn the common cold into a pandemic and make everybody scared of the common cold, when really the common cold, as I showed you on that report before, has killed more people this year than coronavirus already. Let's have a look at the world of media again. It's still sitting the same. Look, there's more people. Now 76,529 people have died from seasonal flu this year, folks. So that number's actually gone up, I think, since we started. Yeah, it just went up again. Look at that. More people dying from the flu by the minute than there are by coronavirus, folks. So, you know, this whole thing is a propaganda stunt by the government. This whole thing is a political exercise. This whole thing is part of their end game to lock people down, folks. I don't think there is any coronavirus. I think all the paper trails and rabbit holes have been put there for us to trace it to anywhere we want. You can go and look at that report that I showed you on Quintech that I uploaded to my channel the other day, which shows you they've been planning this way back since Dr. Livingstone in the late 1800s. So I don't think that there is anything to worry about, folks, except the media propaganda that we're being fed. So that's my report that I wanted to bring you on this today. Bit of road work, traffic, tractors or something going on outside, folks. Sorry about that. But that's all I really wanted to bring you on this today, folks, just to share that information with you. I don't think people should be paranoid about this. I think people should be speaking out about it and sharing the truth with people about what this is all about. This shows us just what they can do with the 5G system, folks, and I have no doubt that that is where this is coming from. You know, I don't believe anything the media is telling us on this at all. I certainly don't believe the governments, and I think if we allow the fear to rule and we don't share this information and we don't start making some noise about this, we're going to find ourselves in some pretty serious hot water, because they can use this to shut down global trade. There's already talk about this, how the fear that the global trade system is going to shut down. There's going to be food shortages. There's going to be money shortages. People aren't going to be able to get to work. People aren't going to be able to travel. People aren't going to go to supermarkets, because everyone's going to be in fear of this terrible pathogen, which is simply the common cold. And they can use 5G to target people specifically. That's the thing about 5G. It's a directed frequency wave. So they could target, they could be a couple and they can target just the husband and not the wife, or vice versa. They can target a couple of people in a shopping center and not anybody else. And when the 5G wave is all pervasive and it's everywhere, and you're a targeted individual, well, you're just going to get sick. You're going to be in this frequency everywhere you go. So, I think this is all very contrived, folks. I think they've been planning this for a very long time. Please do watch that video by Dana Ashley. It's called The Best News Regarding Coronavirus You've Heard All Month, kinda. Good name for the video. It's gone pretty viral. She's had like 250,000 views now almost. So it's gone pretty viral, and that's just in 3 days. So a lot of people are getting the information, and I think you should share it. And I think you should really step back and look at this and just pay attention to what the government is doing and how much they've had this plan for such a long time. Actually, so I was sent a couple of things here as well, which I'll just show you. The Victorian Health Service sent a questionnaire out to their workers late last year. Questionnaire, Staff Immunisation Template 2019, just asking the staff whether they've been immunised against diseases. One of the questions on the form, as you go down the form, is willingness to work in a pandemic or emergency clinic if required. Why do you think that would be on an immunisation questionnaire late last year, folks? It appears that they knew this was coming. So that's about all I've got for you today, folks. Thank you for listening to this report. Please do go and watch those links that I have shared for you below. Please do share that video of Dana Ashley. It's important that people see it. And please do look into this. Look into it for yourself. Don't just believe me. Don't just believe Dana Ashley. Look into it for yourself, because I think if you do, you're going to come up to the same conclusions. But thanks for letting me share that with you today, folks. It's always a pleasure to come and talk to you. I'll try to get a radio show out to you this week or next week. I'm trying to get one out to you soon, get back to the old format, at least be able to bring you one once a month, and then just continue these interim reports in the meantime. But thank you for the support and the kind emails that so many people send me. And thank you for joining in and listening to this today. Always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'll look forward to speaking to you next time. in Lakesh.